Bernard Hickey, good morning to you. Paula Rebstock, her leaving, any comments about that?
Yeah, she's been there for quite a while, and we've had a change of government, and she's going quietly, and the government is saying, thank you very much for a good job, well done, and we'll look for something else for you somewhere. But there's always a suspicion that when someone goes immediately after a new government comes in, that she's being pushed. And she did make herself unpopular with a lot of companies.
That was her job.
Exactly. You have to be a bit grumpy when you're the Commerce Commission chairman, and she did that with a few companies. But on the whole, the Commerce Commission's done a lot better in the last 4 or 5 years than it's done previously. It showed a bit of balls, so to speak. There's always been this complaint that our Commerce Commission was gutless, unlike the Australians. And she did give it some guts. And there's a few people grumbling about that, but I think that's fine. And she's been there for almost 5 years. So I think she's probably had a pretty good go, and we'll see what the new guy does.
Okay. Electrification of the railways.
I think this is an unanalysed potential white elephant that's being pushed through without just any real analysis.
Look, I'm inclined to agree with you. They did electrify the main trunk line, and that was a white elephant as well. That was one of Preble's things, and there's no point for that. I'm going to talk to Mike Lee after 7 o'clock. I suspect the electrification of the Auckland transport system is a preparation for getting underground going, because if you've got underground trains, they've got to be electric. And I think that's probably the bit you're missing.
Yes, I think that's a dumb idea as well. We simply, in Auckland at least, do not have enough population, tightly packed enough. There's this idea that if we build it, they will come.
Well, no, it's just you've got, Baker Street, the first underground railway was in England in 1880. It was a ditch, it was a trench and ditch. And now look at London.
But Auckland will never be a city of 10 million people. I just don't buy it. If they're going to spend $500 million on electric trains, why don't they buy everyone a bike? You could buy...
Well, it's not looking good for bikes in this whole new transport plan either. Bikes, coastal trading, walkways, it's all gone.
And that's disappointing.
Yeah, I think so.
And the one complaint I have...
the one? That's something I never hear Bernard saying.
The one complaint... There's usually a few, that's right. The one complaint I have is that they have not done any analysis before committing to spend upwards of $1 billion.
Okay.
They complained about Labor not talking to Treasury before they bought KiwiRail. And this government appears not to have done any work at all before deciding to go with electrification. And I have yet to see a proper analysis done which shows that it actually makes economic sense.
South Islanders will be pretty happy paying for it though, won't they?
You bet, that's right.
They'll do that with grace.
So instead of a regional tax that Aucklanders pay for their own transport system, now people in Invercargill will have to pay for all these latte-sipping Aucklanders to jump on
and the
trains.
people in Invercargill think they drive the economy anyway through the production of milk powder, and in some ways they're right. I think 20% of the exports come from Southland.
That's right. And you could argue in the last couple of years, it's Auckland that's dragged the economy down, not the rest of the country.
Well, don't encourage them. Newplex Industry, they're good to go again?
Yeah, they've got a reprieve from their banks. They've said you can have a bit more money and we'll let you off on breaking one of these rules that we've set for you. But they really have to raise $110 million from their shareholders to keep their banks happy, and we'll see how that goes over the next couple of days as they go out to shareholders and ask for the money.
Markets?
Up again, and we're now at the end of a 6 or 7 day rally, a big one on the markets. People are beginning to think maybe the worst is over. To be fair, we've seen this a few times before.
We saw this in November. There was a rally for a week, and everyone got back in, and they lost a whole lot more money.
That's right. People are starting to think, well, it's bad, and it's still getting bad, but the rate of it getting bad is not so bad. So they talk about the second derivative.
What's the VIX doing?
That's still volatile.
Okay.
I mean, we've got markets still bouncing around all over the place. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, but it is encouraging to see some of these signs. And we had some news overnight that US retail sales weren't quite as bad as some were expecting. And, we're seeing too, the spin-off for the New Zealand dollar, bad for the exporters, but New Zealand dollar up over 53 US cents last night, and that's because people around the world are starting to feel a bit riskier, feel a bit like more of a bet, and New Zealand dollar is a bit more of a bet, so they're putting their money into the New Zealand dollar again. 53 cents, so that's good news if you're an importer, not so good if you're an exporter.
Did you see this Jon Stewart interview?
With the now fabled Jon Stewart interview with Kramer.
A lot of talk about this. Tell me who Kramer is.
He is an interesting character. He's a former journalist for the Wall Street Journal who became a hedge fund manager, extremely loud, aggressive. He's the real sort of go-get-'em fund manager. And he now works for CNBC, which is the financial channel in the States, extremely popular with traders. He came out 2 weeks before Bear Stearns collapsed and said, "Buy Bear Stearns. It's a great American institution." Then it collapsed about 3 weeks later. And now Jon Stewart, who has launched a campaign against CNBC saying they didn't ask the hard questions when the market was rallying and were cheerleading the whole market. And the chief cheerleader was Cramer. And he came on the show the other night and was absolutely hammered by Jon Stewart. And if you look around on the web, just do a Google on Jon Stewart and Cramer, you'll find it. And it's a cracking piece of television.
So Jon Stewart, a comedian, he absolutely slates The Economist.
He absolutely hammered him. And Jon Stewart, although he's a great comedian, also is very well informed and actually is politically pretty clever. Although I don't always agree with what he says, he certainly has a great show. And if I'm not normally one to say that everyone should watch television, but this is a great piece of television.
Good stuff, Brendan. Thanks very much. Catch you tomorrow. Bernard Hickey there. It is